it's Ashling here from the Institute of Parapsychology and the NLP Global Summit. I am so excited to be joined by one of the absolute greats in NLP today. I'm joined by Dr. Will Horton. Welcome, Will.
Hello, how are you today? Glad to be
Good.
here. Hope things are
Good.
doing well down under, as they say.
Everything is good down under from the depths of Australia to the beautiful sunny skies of Florida. We we're so blessed to have such a diverse skill set when it comes to NLP and people attending from all over the world. But Bill, tell us a little bit more about you. Tell our members who you are and how you got your start with NLP.
Well, I'm Will Horton. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist as well as a master certified addiction professional. Those are legal licenses. And I've been a hypnotist and NLPer for over 35 years. And how I got involved, it's like a lot of people, it was kind of backdoor. I had an addiction myself and I couldn't beat it. It was an alcohol addiction. And I'd been through treatment and a few other things, and 12-step program. And but it just didn't seem to work. And then I was exposed to what I know now, or I didn't at that moment, with some NLP techniques with some hypnosis. And then the only way I can describe it is just everything made sense. What the treatment tried to do, the therapy, the 12-step world, which I'm still very active in the 12-step world, but it all made sense. And so I was hooked. I'm like, wow, I wish I, known this. And it fired something up that I did in high school. The first time I ever hypnotized somebody, I was in high school. There was a book, Hypnosis for Change. I think it's still in print. And it's just one where it just describes hypnosis that has like a relaxation script and then a couple other little scripts. And I remember reading it to a couple people, and they were hypnotized. It scared the shit out of me, to be honest with you, right? I didn't do anything with it. I just thought it was fascinating. But I did make some self-hypnosis recordings. And back then they weren't even cassette tape shit. They were little reel-to-reel tapes, right? And so they were mainly for sports and things like that. So it kind of got on the back burner. But then the addictions got in the way and took my life in a couple different directions. But like I said, once I got exposed, I want to learn this. And back then, this would go all the way back to the early 80s. You couldn't learn hypnosis very easily. You got to picture it was 15 years before the internet. There was very little hypnosis training that you could find. There was Gil Boyne, Kappas, I could go down the names. But unless you knew of it, how you wouldn't know of it. But NLP was starting to get a little buzz back then with Bandler and Grinder. Tony Robbins was just taking off. And it was easier to find NLP trainings than it was hypnosis trainings or any other kind of trainings, mainly in the business aspect here in the States, for sales, marketing and stuff. So I took some intro classes and right when I started taking it, I was doing volunteer work in detox centers. And I'm like, why don't we use this? Why don't we use this? And they couldn't answer that question, except for the fact it's a bureaucracy, and bureaucracies never want to change, right? So anyway, I just kept studying it, and I did go back to, like I said, obviously went back to school, got my degrees, and a few other things, but I always kept the main interest in hypnosis and NLP, with NLP first and then hypnosis with it. So that's what I've been doing, since the early 1980s, I guess you could say.
Wow, what a journey. Thank you so much for sharing that, William. Wow. I could talk to you all day about about your story
Oh
and
yeah, I
about
took
that
classes with
journey.
Bandler, Richard Bandler, Grinder, a guy named David Gordon, he's semi-retired. Epstein, who's passed, a bunch of guys I took classes with are dead now. And a few others over the years. So, Stephen Connie Ray Andreas. So it's been kind of an interesting trip.
Yeah. To say the least. Wowzers. So what can everybody expect to learn from your presentation at the summit?
Well, what I'm be talking about is words that move minds. One of the things that really interests me in hypnosis and NLP is to be able to do it without formally doing it. Right? Can you do it with conversation? And what's really interesting to me, and it amuses me. And usually, and I'm to the point in my career, I say very blunt things, and it upsets a lot of people, but I do not care. uh, it's kind of like taking the Ericksonian hypnosis stuff. And I think that's kind of cool. But one of the things I find fascinating in the field of hypnosis and NLP is there's several people who says, if Erickson were alive today, I would be his heir apparent. And I'm like, really? First of all, are you a medical doctor? No. Erickson wouldn't even talk to you. He would not talk to you. And there's a whole bunch of people, they act like they're the next coming. And I'm like, he only spoke to psychologists the last 5 years of his life. The person that did my clinical rotation in psychology actually got to sit in on a couple of Erickson seminars. And he didn't like the psychologist in the room. He made them sit in the back. They weren't real doctors, according to him. So why would he train a lay hypnotist, right? Which also brings up a whole bunch of stuff about NLP, about how much Bandler and Grinder really studied with him, right? But it was the use of language. And Bandler and Grinder were brilliant with the use of language and how you leverage and what you do. And one of the things, if you notice when NLP was taking off, 1980, late 79, 80, 81, it was after, and Erickson died in early 1980. What happened, in my opinion, is, wow, we could say really cool stuff. And if anybody questions it, we'll say, well, that was according to Milton Erickson. And Erickson was dead, so you didn't have a check or balance. He did not write a lot of papers himself. He had some videos and stuff, but you go back, he was 80 in 1980, so he was an older gentleman. And so that's a great way to make outrageous statements, but then credit it to a dead guy. We're seeing that now with the internet. People put up according to the Facebook, Canoe Reeves must be a god on water because he's been quoted with everything that Aristotle said and all this. Well, no, it's just how you use language. So what I like teaching is how to use language. Can you get people to take action? And the best example, we just lived through 2 years of it with COVID, right? Which was the structured use of language to get people to take certain actions. I don't care which side of the political spectrum people fall on. It was a classic case study in how people respond, right? And when I saw people respond with the lockdowns and things going on, they broke into the two groups. You broke down into the group that they would go along and they would yell at the people that didn't want to go along. And I call it virtue signaling and all this other stuff. Or they were the rebels on this side that says, I'm not doing this. I won't do the vaccine. I won't do the lockdown. This makes sense. But what was interesting, when you look at that, and it was the structure of language and what it had to do with, what did it bring up in the people that it was being done to? Because when the lockdowns began to happen, Australia was pretty brutal. When was the last time an adult, every activity in your life was totally controlled? Where you could go, where you could do, what you could do, who you could talk to. They gave you enough to get by. So, hey, we're feeding you, so you should just be happy, right? Is probably when you were an adolescent or a little kid. So you responded the way you would if you were an adolescent or a little kid. And if you've raised kids, you've been around kids, that usually they either conform, you're the good boy or the good girl, or you're the rebel. Right. And that's just exactly what we saw play out. Right. And to be honest with you, I lost so much respect for people in the hypnosis and the NLP world when they didn't see the big play. When you say, well, it's the structure of language and how they're using fear, because if I can get you afraid, I can get you to take actions beyond your norm. I can get you to suspend all disbelief and follow along. And, and especially if we have an unnamed fear, right? And it's it was fascinating, right? So that's the structured use of language. And it's not that difficult. And what I've seen in the hypnosis and the NLP world in general is people make the trainings very complicated and very structured. mainly to charge more money, but it's also the to make it seem harder than what it is, right? And it's very simple because good people do it naturally. There's some people that do it naturally, and then there's people that are good communicators, and then they learn it and they become brilliant communicators. And that's what the waking hypnosis is.
So who, William, is going to really benefit from listening to your presentation? Who would you say it would be really, really helpful for straight off the bat?
Well, not just therapists, right? Because
that's what I'm thinking.
When you look at this, people think coaches and therapists, of course, they could use it. But what about business people? You're constantly trying to get your employees or your team members to do things. Or if you're in sales, can you sell, right? Can you use it? And it's all in the language of selling. And parents. I mean, it's a broad-based thing. It's not just for therapists and that. In fact, one of the funny things I hear is when people say, they only use these NLP techniques with their clients. And I'm like, well, I only breathe when I'm alive. I don't understand. Once you learn it, how do you not do it? Right?
Because you're constantly what you learn.
Yeah. And it's so if you want to communicate better as a parent, as an employer, an employee, a coach, a lover, whatever it is that you want to be, that'll make you a better communicator. And that's what I like, is that rapid change. Because one of the things, I see too, in the hypnosis world, they always talk about depth of trance. You always hear hypnotists talking about depth of trance, which I find funny, right? I find funny. There's absolutely no such thing as depth of trance, right? And according to one scale, there's like 6 levels. But every person listening has experienced, according to the levels, a 6th level. So you're supposed to be almost out of it, like a negative hallucination. Because I guarantee you've lost your keys and they're right in front of you.
Yeah.
That's a negative hallucination. Or you think that I left them right there when they were over there. That's a positive or a negative hallucination. If you're an athlete of any kind, you've done pain control. You've probably completed a game, a match, or something with an injury that you shouldn't have been able to, right? Which, according to the standards, you're supposed to be in 3rd level trance or something. So you're constantly doing this stuff, right? And a good communicator, if they know how to do it, can take those and influence people. It's all about influence. And lastly, the best people who want to take this, if anybody wants to start a cult, I'll show you how.
Well, it sounds like it's going to be a very exciting presentation. I can't wait for it, and we are so honored to have you as part of our speakers in this wonderful lineup that we have at the NLP Global Summit. Tell me, Will, what was it important for you to be a part of the NLP Global Summit?
Well, because I like to see, I've been blessed beyond my wildest dreams to basically travel all over the world and teach NLP and take NLP in different parts of the world, but to teach it. And sometimes a lot of these things are very American centric. It seems I'll be driven here, and I'm blessed to be in this country. But we're not the only place where cool stuff is happening, right? And so it needs to broaden out, right? And there's not enough of that. It's each country becomes, I don't want to say nationalistic, but it's easier to travel in Australia or New Zealand or Canada or America. And it's tougher, especially in the last few years, even before COVID, it was getting tough to just travel. The expense, the time, but when you get a broad base and you find out what people are doing in different parts of the world, that's refreshing. And I want to be a part of that, to kind of break it open and have some share it with different parts of the world and then learn from people in different parts of the world.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's really, really lovely. I think that's the big thing because we have such a broad spectrum of people involved with the summit from all over the world, all the way from Malaysia. Obviously, I'm Irish. My business partner Fran is from Wales, and we've got lots of people from Australia, from America, from all over Europe and the UK. It's a really, really great spectrum and people with so many different specialities in the areas. And I think that's what's good to how you can utilize NLP in so many different ways. So it's exciting to see how people are using it and creating amazing change in people's lives at the back of it.
Oh yeah, and it's funny. I've been around this a long time, and one of the things I've seen people jump into NLP, and they'll be getting a name as a trainer, and they'll be speaking at conferences, and people go, and then they disappear. This is not several people I've known. This has happened to a bunch of my students, by the way, and people go, "What happened? Did they get burned out?" And a few of the examples was a couple people I know, a man and a woman, different examples, same story is they started doing some in-house corporate stuff, right, for sales and marketing and confidence. And they both got offers from the CEO to join the staff as senior vice president. And so the one person, and I was telling that somebody, go, well, why would they do that? Let's see, a couple $100,000 a year guaranteed, stock options, 5 o'clock, you could walk out, you get a guaranteed vacation every year. If you're a solo practitioner, just, and both of the people I know that jumped on it, they also had kids, right? So they could actually plan a life around it. And as blessed as I've been, it's been a stressful life at times trying to do all this stuff, run a practice. And so it's not that a lot of the people that learn this stuff, they're not maybe like we just said earlier, they're not just staying in coaching or therapy or hypnosis or that. Who knows where it'll end up? One guy was with an insurance company. Another person became a very successful, wealthy guy training people in multi-level marketing. He's not a multi-level marketer himself. He runs their sales stuff. And so that's one of the interesting things about this.
It's so applicable in so many fields. So what would you say to anybody who's on the fence and wondering if they should register and join us at the NLP Global Summit, Bill?
Well, I would say this. When you look to the future, that things are changing. They're changing rapidly. If we would go back to 2019, this time 2019, none of us could see the shit that was about to hit the fan, good, bad, or indifferent, right? So the world's constantly changing. We don't know the changes that are going to happen in this new reset. And I'm not being political here. It's just things are changing. So we don't know. So you need the best skill set you can get, right? And one is communication. Good communicators will always be in demand if you want to go do other things. And as I mature, and you're a beautiful, intelligent young lady, but even everyone, usually as you mature, it's the things you don't do that you regret the most. It's the things you didn't do when you were young. You didn't take this chance, go out with this person, travel, whatever it was. It's when you look back on it, you regret not doing, right? And this can be one of those opportunities that when you're standing there, it's right in front of you. You could do it from the comfort of your house. You don't have to jump on an airplane, fly halfway around the world, and deal with TSA here in America and all this other stuff. You could log on. It'll be recorded. You could watch stuff later. The good stuff. The great thing about online learning, and I've been doing this online stuff since 2009. The good stuff. The good thing is you can go back and review it. It's like that was really cool, but you don't remember what he said or what she said. But you can go back, review it. Then you can take better notes. And so I don't want people to have the regret of not doing it, because like I said, I was lucky enough to get in this in the early 80s, but I still have the regret is what would have happened if I'd have jumped on a plane and got to California and been in that original group of 9. It would have been an interesting thing, right? And so it's regret is not fun. And usually it's just take an action and do it. So sign up and you'll learn a lot. And I've seen the list of speakers, and there's a broad base of information, you know, from addictions to sports to weight loss, all the other stuff, and just sales, marketing, So
it just goes to show how applicable it is to so many different fields and areas of life. And I think for, you know, anybody out there who is looking to use it in therapy or coaching or looking to change their career moving forward, that it will give you a good insight into how people are successfully applying it in different fields. And that is an interesting thing. William, we're almost finished. I would love to ask you one last question. It's like my little bonus question. Yeah. What is your favorite NLP tool?
That's a good question, because whenever I teach, when I'm teaching techniques, I'll go, this is one of my favorite techniques. This is one of my favorite. They're all good in different ways. But I would say it would boil down to two things: is unconscious rapport skills. Can you get unconscious rapport skills, right? Which does take a little bit of effort to learn how to do, but that's like magic. You could do that.
Yeah.
And that's based on information gathering. Everything is, you know, as Bandler, I've heard Bandler say, and Grinder both, one of the few things they agree on is you can only do the kind of work based on the information you gather, right? If you don't gather the right information, you're fixing the wrong problem, right? And we see that now with people like taking this course and that course and this course, which is wonderful, except they're not looking at, like, what do I really need to fix? No one's ever really done information gathering to get down to what really needs to change. So it'd be information gathering. And then, of course, the second part, which kind of goes with that, is being able to do all of the NLP, classic NLP techniques, visual squash, new behavior generator, fast phobia technique, all of the classic mirror technique, all of the classic NLP new behavior. It's my favorite. But to do it with language, without actually saying, take a deep breath, close your eyes, just do it in a language or a story form. So those are my two favorite things.
Wow. So. Well, obviously you're a master of language and the use of it. I'm so excited to hear your presentation. To everybody who's watching, make sure that you put this into your diary to watch Dr. Will Horton's presentation at our upcoming NLP Global Summit. If you have not already registered, it is time to do so now. You can click on the link below and do that for yourself. Do yourself a favor and register, because it'll give you a wonderful opportunity to learn something that you never knew before. And as we mentioned earlier, once you learn these skills, you cannot unlearn them. Isn't that right, William?
Yeah, once your mind's stretched by a new idea, it never goes back to the original.
That's right.
And you'll see the world differently.
You will. Everything changes. Everything changes from that point, and that's what's so exciting about this field. I'm so grateful for you to give up your time for us both at the Global Summit and here today to speak with me. It's been such an honor and a pleasure to spend some time with you and learn from one of the absolute greats in the world of NLP.
Thank you.
Thank you.